What's up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Rolling St0wned. My name is Owen Adams.
And I'm Connor McTighe.
So today on Rolling St0wned, we have an article about get woke, go broke. Now, we're not going to just parrot this mantra, but there may be some truth to that mantra, that delightful phrase. We're going to look into it. We're going to get some facts and data and the real numbers to talk about. So by Miles Klee, here's how much you would have made investing in woke companies this year. So you may have been able to make money in the stock market, and look at this beautiful stock photo here. Get it? Stock photo.
Wonderful.
More generally, what I get from this article in the byline is, well, actually, these companies that went woke actually didn't really lose money at all because it's business as usual. So it starts with the specific headline, but then we get this general idea of oh, you thought that, your boycotts and whatnot did some damage to these companies. Well, actually, they did not. And actually, they made money. So get woke, get rich. So that's kind of the implication, the way I read it.
That is a little bit of a misleading idea.
Right. So let's see what we got here. Get woke, go broke, a favorite rallying cry of conservative culture warriors. Echoed far and wide in 2023 as one company after another was targeted for a boycott over supposed leftist tendencies. Raging right-wingers bashed cans of Bud Light, trashed displays at Target stores, and backed Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in a feud with Disney. Well, I think what we can agree on, a lot of these companies do try to lean towards so-called leftist tendencies because their marketing directors, they think that they can get more money out of people and extract more resources out of them because they're pandering to their leftist ideology.
Yes, it's pandering. It's not even necessarily anything that they believe in themselves, per se.
Right. In a lot of cases, it's really not.
It's about making a buck.
It's completely antithetical to a lot of these companies that we're about to look at.
Yep.
It's a patent myth that selling Pride Month merch or pursuing diversity initiatives will result in financial ruin for a brand. Higher profits are the likelier outcome. Okay, so here's the big argument that this article is going to try to make for us here at the Rolling St0wned. If you bought the stock when it dipped during the controversy, and then obviously when you sell it when it goes back up, you've made a quick profit, right? This is basic economics here. There's no way to know how low the value will drop, how long it will stay down, or what level it will return to. But nevertheless, a pattern is visible. In cases where they've seen members of the public flip out about a company's eco-friendly ethics or diversity, equity, and inclusion DEI programs. Now, notice how they spell it, DEI. There's another word you can make out of these three letters, too. They're not going to use that one. So they've had clients buying the dip and selling around 80% of the pre-dip price. So, and now here again, 80% of the pre-dip price. So the Economist is not even arguing that it's going back to normal or increasing. It's still down.
Not to what it once was.
Yeah, it's still down. Here's a few scenarios outlining how a hypothetical investor with some luck could have cashed in on right-wing outrage in 2023. So the first big example here is, how do you pronounce this again, Connor?
Anheuser-Busch.
You're a beer expert. Anheuser-Busch. I want to know where the I is in this word. It seems to be hiding. So there's this whole thing here. If you buy the shares and then you sell it on this exact day, then you would have made this much money. Yeah, I'm sure. So conservatives had their work cut out for them when they sought to take on the world's biggest brewer over a Bud Light collab with trans entertainer Dylan Mulvaney.
They thought they were going to tap into a market that they otherwise normally don't. And they were like, we're such a large company. There's no way this is going to blow back in our face at all. And boy, did it.
If that marketing director didn't realize that this was going to open up a whole can of negative press, maybe they should consider a different position. To hear the right-wingers tell it today, this was far and away the most successful boycott the right has pulled off in living memory, even though Bud Light has since scored a $100 million+ endorsement deal with the UFC And Kid Rock, a ringleader of the backlash, never actually stopped drinking the stuff. Real way to commit to the bit there, Kid Rock. So the beverage conglomerate's stock price began to slide in May, and it hit lows. The stock hit lows around $53. But after the UFC ad, and it shot back up and is now around $63, about 5.5% higher than at the beginning of 2023. So here's the way I read this, is that the stock went down for a while, and then it came back, and then the next year, eventually, it went 5.5% higher. But doesn't that mean they still lost money the previous year, Connor?
It seems that way.
Why would they phrase it this way? It's 5.5% higher than at the beginning of 2023. Like when you
That's still accurate to
and
say.
they have to put that 0.5% higher. Like when you read this, the perception that you have when you're reading this is that it's a bigger increase than it actually is. According to CNN Business, Bud Light controversy cost parent company about $395 million. So you can go to, this is not a right-wing article by any means. You can go to CNN right now. Look at these giant bottles right here. The sales declined by 14%. It was like a huge outlier compared to the rest of the beer industry. Like everybody's kind of doing this, and then Bud Light just like tanks down. Very obvious that they lost a ton of money here. But Rolling Stone seems to disagree. One down. Let's see what their next example is.
Disney.
So again, this to me is irrelevant because, like they said at the beginning, you can't tell the future. Nobody knew that it was going to go down or how long or when it's going to go back up. So attempts to bring Disney to its knees over some perceived betrayal of traditional values feels like a quarterly ritual at this point. Whether they're casting non-white feminists in live-action remakes of beloved cartoon classics, or revamping problematic amusement park rides, or offering mild criticism of anti-LGBTQ legislation, the entertainment giant has continually irked reactionaries as it tries to change with the times. Pay attention to the wording and the phraseology of all this. Well, Disney's just trying to change with the times, and the reactionaries got all upset, but they're revamping problematic rides. So Disney is actually the good guy here, and it's the bad guys that are the ones that are irked here. So pay attention to the colorful language.
Keep in mind, Disney does need to make a hard left after some of the problematic stuff they used to come out with back in the 40s and 60s.
Sure.
They are really trying to do some damage control for some of their past discrepancies.
That could be true. I think they've kind of mostly atoned for their sins. I don't know if we need every live-action remake to be a non-white feminist. Like, does that help what they did in the past? It just seems kind of like more of the same to me. The hateful extremism on X and that terrible, horrible anti-Semite Elon Musk.
He's like a Disney villain.
Yeah, he is. And Disney had to just stand up to him. So now Disney is up around 2.5%, and the shares for about $79 are priced in the low 90s today. So they kind of just picked a date randomly to try and get the numbers to work out. So they recovered,
and
that's
right.
it. But that's it. But
they
all
recovered
we get.
Okay. They basically broke even.
I guess. So again, they're phrasing it that way. So let's see. Disney is now up around 2.5% from the indeterminate point in the past that they specifically picked to make it look like they were up around 2.5%. So the Disney stock prices, according to Yahoo Finance, not a far right-wing organization, they lost nearly 40% from the previous year. When you lose nearly 40%, isn't that like half almost? Like
damn near.
Right? So the idea that they didn't actually lose money, and actually they came out on top because they were up 2.5%, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. They lost 40% of their stock shares, so that's 2 for 2 here, Rolling Stone. Next, we have Dick's Sporting Goods.
Now, these guys, on the other hand, this was the most interesting company because the return seems to be a lot larger.
Sports equipment retailer Dick's inspires a sort of hatred in the classic red meat Republican Over the past few years, they've drastically reduced the availability of weapons in their stores in response to the American epidemic of mass weapon usage. And yes, these are, by the way, words that if we use them, YouTube is going to get mad at us.
Understood. So, apparently, they're angry not about them being removed, just the drastic reduced availability.
Yeah.
They're not all gone.
So they have to admit here the corporation's stock did actually plummet after an August earnings call in which it reported a drop in quarterly profit and a rise in organized retail crime. Some on the right tried to spin this as Dick's learning what the consequences of going woke are, as if the purported shoplifting and market plunge were caused by a chain's political positioning. Which it's not, right?
People are stealing from us. That's why we're losing money.
If people are stealing the weapons from the store, it makes sense that you wouldn't want to have them as easily accessible in the store. I get that. I mean, that's common sense, right?
And they're up a whopping 21% since January.
21%? I'm inclined to give this to the writer here. I'm inclined to give him one.
This one's a good one.
Next, we have, as the Brits call it, Nike. Even more so than Disney, Nike has absorbed endless contempt from conservatives for nods to progressive ideals. And again, colorful language here. They're just ideals, Connor. They're not pandering to an ideology that a lot of people view as destructive and toxic in the culture. It's just their progressive ideals. They
haven't come out and said that they even did.
They just want to make progress, Connor. Yeah, they have little children in factories making their shoes, but they just want progressive ideals. So Nike also made Dylan Mulvaney a brand ambassador this spring. This is just like everybody's addicted to the Dylan, I guess. And as a result served as a secondary punching bag for those who needed a break from savaging Bud Light. That Mulvaney, a trans woman, was modeling Nike's activewear for women made this advertisement the worst offense in the eyes of some transphobes. Unlike Anheuser-Busch, however, Nike did not put out an equivocating statement when blasted by bigots for the endorsement. Instead, they stood with the LGBTQ community. Perhaps they learned from the backlash to their 2018 campaign featuring quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who led NFL players' protest of racial injustice by kneeling for the national anthem. All right, this is something that liberals do that annoys me to no end. All right, you guys claim to be so culturally enlightened, and you're so progressive, and you have all the best ideals and such. What does trans people and transphobia have to do with Colin Kaepernick? Racial injustice and LGBTQ, they're kind of the same thing, right? The author of this article is drawing an equivalence, but let us know what you guys think in the comments. Its stock dropped and went down to $90. It went back up to around $121. A whopping 2% higher. So for those with an eye to the long term, if you'd invested during the Kaepernick campaign, your shares would be worth almost 70% more today.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, so for all one guy that did that, they made out like a bandit.
Like a bandit.
So next we have Target. Though it's in the nature of a big box store to sell as many products to as many different customers as it can, Target took a lot of heat for catering to LGBTQ shoppers in June with a Pride Month collection that included tuck-friendly swimwear for adults. Okay, not children as common accusations.
Not children as common accusations of grooming had it. Keep that in mind, folks.
Yeah, so accusations...
Because I've heard tons of people in my real life who loudly said that is what was 100% the case. The uproar grew so intense that when Target announced they would pull certain items, they could credibly claim that they were doing so for the safety of employees, some of whom had been harassed for the rainbow-themed displays.
Yeah, I remember seeing videos about this. Wasn't there videos of people like parading through the stores with like protest signs and stuff, and the employees like trying to kick them out or whatever?
You're trying to do your job on a Target salary, and you're getting harassed by these Bamas? Nah.
Yeah, like... Look,
you don't get paid enough to do that, for real.
Look, you can go protest on a street, on a public road, at a government building, public building, public property. As soon as you're inside a private entity like Target, as far as I'm concerned, your First Amendment is kind of suspended until you get back to your house, right? I mean, your First Amendment exists in our comment section 100%, but not in Target. And even the author has to admit the Target stock hasn't quite recovered from the slide it entered after the Pride promotion. So that's another one that has not recovered. So again, out of 5 companies that this person's listing, we're up to 1 so far. 1.
If you were one of these investors and you did it just right, you could have made some dough.
Right. If you bought 100 shares of $126
on these
exactly
dates.
on June 12th, and then you sold it at exactly 141 on exactly December 14th, then yes, you would have made a profit of $1,500. Yes, that's true. That's true. But any normal person that's not an economist like us, when we read that, instantly your brain goes, oh, so they made money. They did not make money. This is why we do this show. Finally, we have Apple.
This one's another big profit margin right here. A critical mass of grievance never seems to coalesce around any of Apple's liberal-coded business practices. Almost as if Republicans know it's useless to mount an offensive against the tech juggernaut.
And it is, right?
Yeah, what a waste of time to go up against somebody like Apple.
Yeah, they have more power than a lot of countries' governments in our civilization.
Complaints of Apple's alleged wokeness are a near constant. Marjorie Taylor Greene was taking issue with the iPhone's new clean energy charging. Ben Shapiro was complaining that Apple TV Plus's streaming adaptation of Frog and Toad, which is like a super old story too, was trying to turn children gay. Of course, my favorite, James Woods, declaring that the pregnant man emoji is a harbinger of the company's doom. Apparently, there's a pregnant man, there's an emoji of a pregnant lady, and then there's also a version where it's a man who is also pregnant. How is this encouraging children to think certain ways or whatever? Right next to this pregnant man, there's also a fairy, a Santa Claus, there's genies, Frankensteins, Draculas. I mean, maybe those kids want to be Draculas. You know, I don't think that a single emoji. There's a piece of poop that's smiling. I just don't see how that's really... Patrick Stewart played the thing in a movie. I just don't see how the pregnant man emoji is really having that much influence on today's youth.
They're saying that by releasing this emoji, by the fact that it even exists, is that Apple is tacitly implying that men can get pregnant. Connor, can men get pregnant?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, I'm not aware of this being
There's
a
that
thing.
movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he gets pregnant. So if I was ever having a conversation with somebody via text about that movie and that movie came up, I would
Right.
be thankful that there was a pregnant man emoji hanging around. Like,
This is the perfect
this is
emoji.
the perfect moment to use this emoji. It's never going to come up again that I can think of, but it's perfect for just right now. And thank you, Apple, for making it available to me. You know?
How do we know that Apple didn't release it because they're anti-woke and they're making fun of the nut jobs
You
that
don't
think,
know.
Men can get pregnant? Maybe it's a spoof. Maybe Apple is actually outsmarting you guys here.
Or maybe they're a company that prides themselves on being user friendly to the point where they have every option for everything, and that's what they talk about constantly in all of their advertising. Oh wait, yeah, that's what they do all the time.
Right. Yeah, they have everything. Let's see if it makes a dent in Apple's prospects. None of it makes a dent in Apple's prospects. At nearly $195 a share, it's up a whopping 50%, 56% or so in the year, and 100 shares bought in January would be worth almost $7,200 more today.
So
Just
that
one
is
more
company
reason.
2 on the plus side.
Yes.
This one goes to the credit.
So I believe that's 2 out of 6. That's 2 out of 6 from the brilliant economist Miles Klee, who has informed us that actually, in fact, all of these companies made money from going woke. But let us know what y'all think in the comment section down below. Does going woke make you go broke, or is it the opposite? Does going woke actually make you a joke, or does it make you just a good folk? definitely share this episode of Rolling Stoned with all of the beer drinkers you know, all of the sporting good consumers that you know,
People who wear shoes.
and all of the trans women that you know. And don't forget to hit this like button if you're feeling our threads, if you're feeling our Rolling Stoned format. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified on our future uploads. So I don't know exactly how broke all of these companies are going to go, but this has been Rolling Stoned.
And we are signing out.